We are back with James Bond. We are here with On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and if you watch the unboxing video, you know that I promised some type of demonstration of this game. So I'm not going to go through what the components are per se, since those were indicated in the other video, but let's just briefly go over the rules here. I'm going to turn immediately to this section here that says very excitedly, begin play. All the other rules you need are either in the James Bond basic gamebook or in the paragraphs themselves. Well, the paragraphs themselves are right here in the booklet, and we are going to be playing through, or at the very least, the only thing I'm going to touch on, I don't know if I'm going to play through it, the only thing I'm going to touch on is the prologue. So this game covers, it is the 4 solitaire adventures that are referred to here constitute a prologue, and then what they call the first 3 chapters. Now, I've read the book. I actually have not seen the movie, but I've read the book, and from what I can tell, just looking at it quite briefly, doesn't necessarily follow the storyline of the book. But I guess we'll get into that and see. This has to be, one of the most visually uninteresting ideas for a video that I've had, but we'll see how it goes. I'm really just trying to demonstrate this system and how it works. So we've got the paragraph booklet here, but of course all other rules are in the James Bond Basic Gamebook. Now the James Bond Basic Gamebook is, I've got it off to the side here in a binder. It's about 160 plus pages of dense rules and explication. Here, I'll just show you an example here that is necessary to integrate and refer to when you're playing through this system. The NPC cards that are here that are going to represent the randomized and live, quote-unquote, NPCs that you encounter are not fully fledged characters. So they don't have all the values that your character will have. They primarily center on combat values, and then they have their willpower and perception. So there is a limitation here in terms of what the AI GM is able to provide. I mean, you would expect that. It's still a pretty cool way of providing a difference for you as you go through. All the NPCs have the same values, except there are some of them, like this one here, that have a star indication, and that means that you are, when you calculate your damage, I think you need to add, can't remember whether it's 1 or 2 columns over to, in effect, create more damage. So these are more important, as it were, NPCs. And that is the randomization there. And then you also have these action cards, and you're going to be pulling these, as we'll see. The action cards have various values and will indicate for both fire combat and hand-to-hand combat a different type of response depending on the danger level. The danger level is going to go up and down depending on both the paragraphs as well as some of the cards that you pull. So for example, it says here, lower your danger level 1 box. Well, what is a box? A box is, whoopsie, that's probably the most visually interesting thing that's going to happen. The box refers to this. This is your player mat, and the player mat is used to indicate, here you can see the danger levels here, which correspond to the different responses. And it also, I mean, the main function of it really is to be a player aid to decode the values, for example, that are on this card. So what does MZ mean? Well, MZ means a zigzag move this turn, etc. So it will explain what these mean. And there is also, when we get into the chase sequence, there are, again, different responses that the AI NPC is going to take, and it is indicated here through a die roll, and also the corresponding range that the chase is happening. And there's also a bidding for the chase danger level, and we'll talk about how that works when we get to it. And then finally, you're provided with a bunch of counters, probably more than you actually really need, but a bunch of counters that you're going to place to indicate whether somebody is wounded and what the nature of the wound is, whether somebody is offering covering fire, and distances that are being utilized in terms of combat, fire combat. So these are the elements that you're provided. Of course, there's no map, there are no standees, there's no miniatures or anything. This is in your head. I mean, it is an RPG, and this apparatus is meant to take the place of the GM. And of course, the basic paragraph booklet is in very much so, because that's providing you with a narrative. So we're going to follow it through. Suffice it to say, there's basically no replayability in this game, but what I am going to do is to show you, I'm going to play part of it using 2 different character levels, and I'm going to use the standard characters that are offered here. This is back to the basic RPG rules, and we've got a sampling of beginning characters, and the characters come at 3 different ranks. Of course, the 00 rank is the highest. This is the James Bond character, and the stats that are provided for him here fully fleshed out. And then we also have sort of the middle level character, which are agent ranks. There's Holly Goodhead and Felix Leiter. Holly made an appearance in my other video on the James Bond Assault. And we have our rookie rank characters, Mary Goodnight and Lieutenant Chong's son, Hip. I'm going to show you, I'm just going to run a little bit with James Bond and this character, and then I'm also going to run Mary Goodnight just to show you the difference in what might happen. If you're playing, I haven't played this through so much because I wanted it to be fresh, but the little bit that I did do, playing a single character just at the rookie rank, it was really tough because you're not able, you don't have a lot in your arsenal, as it were, and I was just playing a single character. I would say perhaps if you wanted to play a lower level character, you could possibly run a rookie and an agent together, maybe as 2 characters. You know, the 00 character alone also in a weird way seems to, not a weird way, but it's James Bond. It seems a little easy. So there's got to be the right mixture there, I guess, if you want to feel like everything isn't automatically going to be a fail or automatically going to be a success. But just for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to run 2 characters alone at the high and low level so you can see some of the differences. Now, of course, you can also create your own character, and you don't need to use these prefab ones. The character generation is actually a really fun part of, obviously, any RPG, really. And in here, there are rules for it that I'm not going to get into. But I will say that I also ran, I can't find the character sheet, I also made my own character at, I think I was using the rookie level, which is the lowest level of generation points to create the character. And I ran that a little bit also to see how my character fared as opposed to the pre-created Mary Goodnight. And it was just as, did just as poorly. It was pretty tough at that rookie level. So that is all I'm going to cover in terms of the rules and structure, and we're just going to get right to it and start with the first paragraph. The device under which you're hanging, shivering in the moonless night air, is a specially designed, powered hang glider at your disposal, compliments of Q. Before you, the world passes by in an eerie twilight seen through your night finder goggles. You glance at your watch, 30 seconds to cutoff, the time when you must switch off the small motor and glide silently the rest of the way to your destination, the Chateau de Nuit, the castle of the night. You learn that there is somebody hiding there who has been conducting some nefarious activities, and of course, you have been sent to suss them out. And of course, the contact that you're making needs to be very silent and very secretive, and Her Majesty's Secret Service is relying upon you to determine what is going on. And as it says here, eloquently written, enter yourself. M wanted the castle of the night penetrated. The objective was not to arrest this person that you're seeking, at least not yet, but to discover who was behind this new espionage effort and the extent of its activity. There's also a microfilm that you need to recover and identify the KGB agent that has been behind all of this. To penetrate the castle, however, requires more than ordinary skill and stealth. There are cliffs to the south that are heavily guarded, and there are other land approaches that are impassable. Considering all options, it was decided to risk an aerial insertion using a modified hang glider capable of powered flight that could come in under the radar search pattern, traveling the last few hundred yards silently to land on the chateau roof. You will then penetrate the chateau, accomplish as much of your mission as you can, and return to the roof. Then, of course, you're going to launch yourself off the roof, over the cliffs to the south, flying over the Mediterranean, where you will be picked up by a waiting submarine. Your wristwatch has a signal and a homing transmitter built into it that will alert the sub when you are coming and guide it to your location. Sewn into your black commando suit are inflatable packets that will, when triggered by pulling the appropriate cords, keep you afloat until rescued. Consequently, you are now flying over treetops like some prehistoric reptile, leathery wings outstretched, about to turn off your small power plant, prepared to cover the last distance between you and your prey in utter silence. All of a sudden, rolling a d6. If the result is a 5, I get to draw an action card, and if I have a 6, I get 2 action cards. I got a 1, so I get an action card, and we will just place it into our hand here. Now, it says raise the danger level 1 box. It's in my hand. I think I'm going to have to do that. I also wasn't clear what the danger level started at, so let me just double check and get back. All right, all has been clarified. This simply goes into my hand, and we turn now to paragraph 79 to see what continues on. Remember, we're gliding in here. You are flying a hang glider over a dark forest. Only your night finder goggles let you see the terrain below, for there is no moon. Off to one side is the dark ribbon of a road cutting through the woods from north to south. Ahead of you looms the shadow of the chateau. Between the forest and the castle is an open field, then high walls, beyond which are the grounds of the castle itself. Past the chateau to the south is a deeper darkness, which you know is a bay giving onto the Mediterranean. Now here what happens is we're drawing 11 of these action cards, and we are placing them around this playmat, and we are continuing to do piloting skill check rolls to see whether we encounter mishaps or turbulence or whatever. So let me do that a little bit off camera, and I'll let you know what happened. All right, we're back. It's been a while, and I got to tell you, I cannot make a video about this. It would take someone way more skilled than me to make a video that's of any interest beyond what I already put out there that shows the very basics of how this thing might work. This is worth seeking out if you are just craving an RPG experience that is in the espionage world, specifically in the James Bond world, and don't have either the time or the connections to get together a group and actually play with a GM. It really does work if you let yourself get involved in the paragraphs that you're reading and the dynamics that are made possible by pulling these action cards, which will allow for, as I mentioned, various degrees of response from the NPC depending on the danger level, and also pulling in what are essentially random events that guide you in the paragraph book when you encounter these things called opportunities or obstacles. And then, of course, all the NPCs that come with their various stats. Now, as I mentioned earlier when I was explaining how it works, they're not fully fledged out, so you're limited with them a little bit in terms of what you can do, but you as your character are using a lot of your own skills to interact with the paragraph. So what I started to show you was a piloting check as you're gliding in, but throughout the adventure, which I won't get into the details, you're using all of the skills that you have developed in as your character. So you are using persuasion, and you're using stealth, and you're using, of course, your combat, but there are safes to crack, and there are horses to ride, and there are people to try to seduce if you want. And that comes from the interaction of your character with the paragraph books. This system, it's not so easy to find. It took me a while to track it down, but if it's unique. I really haven't played anything like this in terms of a solo system. I have played a bunch of solo RPGs, but just even the physical components of it, that you have these little counters. I mean, could this be done differently without them? Yes, it could, but having them does draw you in as a gaming experience, I think, in a way that is different than simply pen and paper. Though, of course, you're using pen and paper here as well, and that's a part of it too. And I imagine if you are going to be seeking this out, pen and paper is something that makes you excited in a game, or as it were, pencil and paper, because you really should be using a pencil, of course. Anyway, I just can't do the walkthrough. It's not going to work, and maybe it already hasn't worked, but I just wanted to follow up with the video attempt, at least, because I said I would. And I'm going to go on and play the rest of this out, because for me it's very enjoyable, and it's another way to create narrative and story through game mechanics, which is what ultimately I'm always looking to do.